Corrections Reform Task Force. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Senator Storm, Senator Webb, Senator Westerfield, Senator Wheeler, Representative Hale, present. Representative Herron, Representative Petrie,
Here.
Representative Williams,
Here.
Co-Chair Schickel, Co-Chair Bray.
Present. Once again, thank you all for coming out. First on the agenda today, we have a couple people from my neck of the woods, a jailer from within my district, and Chris Girdler with SPEDA. If you don't care, will you all please introduce yourself for the record? Make sure your microphones are on before you present, and make sure you pull it to you. Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Chris Girdler, President and CEO of SPEDA, Somerset-Pulaski Economic Development Authority.
My name's Anthony McCollum. I'm the jailer of Pulaski County.
My name is Michelle Bramble. I'm the program coordinator at Pulaski County Jail.
All right, thank you all. They're going to present to us an extremely innovative work reentry program that they've implemented down in Pulaski County. Extremely excited about this. Think that it's got the possibility to be implemented statewide. And with that, you all can begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, thank you so much for allowing us to present to you here today. It's great to see everyone. I do want to, with all sincerity, thank you for your service to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I know sometimes it can probably seem like a thankless job and can be stressful at times, to say the least. I mean, look at me. When I came to Frankfort years ago, I had a full head of hair. And as you can tell, that's definitely not the case today. I like to call it the Frankfort side effect. So in all sincerity, I want to thank you for your service to the Commonwealth. But that being said, we're honored to be here, and I'm so thankful to join my good friend and a committed public servant, Pulaski County Jailer Anthony McCollum, as well as Michelle Bramble, who works for Pulaski County Detention Center as well. Anthony McCollum has been the key element behind the success of the Pulaski County Reentry Program. First, Mr. Chair, if I may, let me say how proud I am to lead the SPEDA organization, as mentioned, which stands for Somerset-Pulaski Economic Development Authority. It is a new entity that we started from scratch a little over 4 years ago. We had to acknowledge in our home community that economic development efforts had grown somewhat stale and stagnant for about 15 years, and we needed to shake things up a bit. We needed to break some eggs. We needed to start over from scratch, and that's what we did at SPEDA. We needed to acknowledge that economic development is so much more than building a spec building somewhere and hoping that one day somebody's going to come work there, or trying to see how much money and incentives that we can throw at a company to try to attract them to our community. So we firmly believe at SPEDA that economic development is anything that one does to benefit their citizens economically, politically, and socially. And so we reshaped the economic development playbook. And over the last 4 years, we have invested and engaged heavily in many different areas, ranging from tourism promotion, downtown development, arts and entertainment, education and workforce development, airport and aviation enhancements, commercial and retail recruitment, attraction of conferences and conventions, and overall project coordination and community planning. Anything that will help enhance the overall quality of life for the citizens of Lake Cumberland. And at SPEDA, our tagline is making business about people. We have trademarked that, and when we say quality of life, we mean for all walks of life. And so it was only fitting that we work on trying to help those who are incarcerated, who are down on their luck and looking for a second chance, and yes, sometimes a third or fourth chance, and are wanting to improve their lives. And this is also something we knew that could have a big impact on workforce development, as well as save taxpayers money long term, cut down on recidivism rates, and help the next generation not to follow in those footsteps of their predecessors and the like. So it was only fitting to meet with Jailer McCollum, who has spent a lifetime in law enforcement and is doing a tremendous job as our jailer and as such an active, community-minded public servant. Jailer McCollum and I, Mr. Chair, we sat down for a meeting in the summer of 2019 to discuss ways in which we may be able to work together. And shortly thereafter, we had a partnership between Pulaski County Detention Center, Somerset Community College, and some of you all may know Greg Coker. And there's some of that information should be in your packet here today, but we paid to have a soft skills program implemented in the detention center. The program hit the ground running, was making a great impact on the inmates, but unfortunately an internal change from the Kentucky Department of Corrections somewhat came out of the blue, and this program no longer qualified. But as a community and as a region, we did not let that deter us from the goal of seeking to improve the lives of those incarcerated in Pulaski County Detention Center. And the old saying, Mr. Chair, as I know all of us have heard many times, it takes a village, holds so true. And we have an incredible team leading the way, and SPEDA is just a very, very small part of that team. Firstly, it takes a dedicated jailer who has a heart to change the lives of those behind bars, someone who is willing to spend the time cutting through the red tape to initiate such a successful program, and that person is Anthony McCollum, who's sitting here with me today. We've also been led by Myra Wilson, who's the manager of Cumberland Workforce and Lake Cumberland Area Development District, Aaron Pointer, who was formerly of Cumberland's Workforce and is now a director of a state program called Putting Kentuckians First, Jana Shell with Cumberland's Workforce, an entire team of dedicated educators and instructors at Somerset Community College, Becky Wilson from Goodwill Industries, Brenda Russell from God's Food Pantry. We are also in the process of starting a new program in partnership with Life Learning Center, which is in the Covington community, which I believe is one of the most successful reentry programs led by former State Representative Alicia Webb Edgington. And in particular, it also takes a private sector partner who is willing to hire these inmates while they are incarcerated as well as upon their release. And in particular, a company called Hendrickson, which is located in Somerset. They are literally the world's largest supplier and manufacturer of tractor-trailer suspension axles. They have been an imperative and integral part of this program. But we as a community, we're so proud of this program and the positive impact that it is having and the results from it that we chose to highlight. In particular, you'll see on our annual impact report, you'll notice we did not choose to put our new industrial park that we're currently developing. We didn't choose to put any of the multi-million-dollar projects that we've been able to announce in the past year. We chose to highlight this young lady's success, who was an inmate at Pulaski County Detention Center. You'll find that in front of you, and when able, I hope that you'll be able to review her incredible success story, and I know that many others are going to be following in those footsteps. And Mr. Chair, I don't mean to belabor this, but prior to deferring to Jailer McCollum to talk further about these details, I also want to quickly highlight another outside-the-box process that we as a community have undertaken, and that was SPEDA purchasing a 6,000 square foot warehouse at a drastically reduced price, thanks to our friends at Lake Cumberland Regional Hospital. This building sat adjacent to the detention center, and Jailer McCollum and his staff have been working tirelessly to renovate this building to provide technical training for inmates, and it will be opening soon. They've been renting the building from SPEDA on a quote-unquote lease-to-own agreement, and in a few more months, Pulaski County Detention Center will own this facility outright, and it will be fully functional. We are so proud, Mr. Chair, of the work being undertaken by Jailer McCollum and others. I've been honored to accompany this team to the jail to meet with inmates prior to their release, and that is able to inform them of the programming taking place, sometimes speaking and other times just able to be there as a fly on the wall. And it has inspired me, and I've personally witnessed the difference that this is making in people's lives. Jailer McCullum and his team, they've led the way. I'm very eager to turn this over to him for some additional comments and insight into the program. And I think the one thing I want to emphasize is that Anthony truly cares about his fellow man. He works daily to improve their lives as well as the overall quality of life in our community. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will refer to Jailer McCullum.
Mr. Chair, thank you all, members of the committee. I am honored to be here before you today. Back when I ran for office, we have and still have a facility that, of course, is overcrowded. So dealing with that, we were trying to come up with ways to help the recidivism and the overcrowding of the facility. What we had been doing in the past, we'd been doing some counseling while they were in the jail and giving them resources. When you get out of the facility, if you have help, take this packet. And of course, we all know, but they went outside. As soon as they went outside, they threw that packet in the trash, and and then a few days later here, they would come back in. So we said we got to start thinking outside of the box and come up with a program or come up with something that would be able to sustain them once they got outside. We got to looking. They don't have driver's license. A lot of them doesn't know how to get birth certificates. They don't know where to find their Social Security cards. So there was a lot of challenges that we started seeing, and talking to them and talking to our fellow partners, we realized that many of them don't have homes to go to once they get out. They don't have jobs to go to. They don't have transportation. So these were issues that we started saying, we're going to have to address these issues. So coming up with our community partners, we met for probably at least 2 years before we were able to formalize a plan. Meeting with Somerset Community College, workforce development, we started addressing these issues. We started finding funding. We started finding resources. Now we are able to take inmates that are around 90 days out. We try to find them that are within our Lake Cumberland area, our Lake Cumberland region, because that's what's going to go back into our workforce. So we start looking at this criteria, and we put these people that are incarcerated into Somerset Community College, into programs where they can get certificates, to where they can get the education to be able to have credentials once they are released from the facility. Also, we had a industrial leaders breakfast and said, we are able and willing to allow ones that are incarcerated to come out and to work in the community while they are still within the facility. Hendrickson graciously jumped on board with us, and now we have, once they complete the training, Hendrickson comes down, they interview them, they go through just a job hiring process, and we actually transport them to and from work on their regular shifts. So once they get out of the facility, they are required to get bank accounts. One of our local banks, Common Security Bank, allows them to set up bank accounts with them. Their entire paycheck goes to in their bank accounts that they are, when they're working for the factory, they get the same hourly rate as anyone else would. We charge them like $50 a paycheck just to cover our gas and expenses of going out there. And then once they are out, get out of the facility, they've got the money to be able to afford housing. They've got the money to be able to afford cars. They've got the money to be able to support themselves. And so far, we've had 40 that has gone through the program. We've got 9 that are currently still working. 2 are still incarcerated with us and going out to work. Out of those 40, 15 were accepted by Hendrickson to work. And so far, we've only had 2 that have actually come back to be reincarcerated. One of them was on an old warrant, and that was still active, that we weren't aware that it was active, and the other one was actually a probation violation that came back in. So we've had quite a bit of success with this program and are very proud of it, but it takes employees like Ms. Bramble that oversees it. She has a committee with her and the community partners that vet the inmates to find out the ones that are good for the programs. So it's quite a lengthy process that we go through. Not all of them are able to go. Like I said, we make sure that the ones that are going are 90 days to getting out at least. We make sure that their sentences, have been served and are getting ready to get out. So it's not something that we do pre-sentencing or anything like that. It's ones that are getting ready to be released. Any questions? I think that kind of is an overview of it.
Representative Herron.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for your work and your presentation. I do have a question. I know you just said that the people who participate are about 90 days from getting out. Are there specific charges that you allow or don't allow? And then that's my first question.
Yes, they have to be deemed by the Department of Corrections to be able to go work out in the community. So they've got to be classified by the Department of Corrections to be safe to be worked in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Hale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Herron actually asked one of the questions that I was going to ask. The second one I was going to ask are when these people, when they go to, and I really like this, I think this is really a great idea. When they go to this specific place of work, are they accompanied there by people from your staff? Is there people from the staff that have to remain there during their shift?
Since they are able to go out and work in the community, what we do is we train the supervisors at the facility what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. So the supervisor at the facility is actually the one that monitors them while they're at work. My staff just transports them to and from, and they get one chance. If they try to bring a cell phone back in or they try to violate a jail policy while they're there at the work, then we pull them and they're no longer allowed to go back and work. So they've got one chance at this, and if they violate those rules, then those chances are gone.
And if I could just follow up with one other question, and I don't know how this question be perceived, but are they actually checked for things once they come back to
Yes.
the facility? So they're
Yes.
just there are. Could you address that, how that's done?
Yes, whenever they're brought back from the facility, we have the body scanners.
Okay.
They are allowed when they go to work at the facilities. They're allowed to wear regular clothing. Mm-hmm. When they come back in the facility, they are dressed back out and put back into the orange jail suits. So once they're brought back in, they are checked to make sure they've not brought anything back into the facility. And we also have deputies that go out and randomly inspect the work site, like on breaks and other times like that, to ensure that they're not out violating the jail rules, meeting boyfriend, girlfriend out on the parking lots or anything like that. So we actually have jail staff that goes out and spot checks to make sure that they're following the policies while they're out working.
Thank you very much. I really applaud your efforts in that. I think that's certainly something that we need to look at as a possible statewide measure there. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your efforts. It looks like you're doing a great job so far. My question concerns around or pertains to how many partners do you have with these businesses that will allow these individuals to come and work, and how do you sell that or pitch it to local businesses or whatever to make that happen?
I'll refer that one to Chris if you want to.
That is a great question, Representative Williams. And as Jailer McCollum referred to earlier, we hosted Jailer McCullum, as well as some of the instructors from Somerset Community College, at what we refer to as our Industrial Leaders Breakfast. And at that particular gathering, we had 54 of our largest employers from the community gathered there, and kind of allowed us to make that pitch. Right now, Hendrickson is without question the leader in that. We do have several others that are coming on board to do that, and we've realized that it takes time. Hendrickson was almost like the guinea pig in this, to be able to take away those fears that some of the other companies had. But as they see the success that's taking place, we have a lot more coming to the table wanting to be a part of this initiative. And I think you're going to see that just continue to spread, kind of like a domino effect. And what we have seen is the companies that have more of a higher corporate structure are a little slower to respond, as to where the companies that are more locally owned are able to adjust a lot more quickly and adapt quickly, and they're coming quicker to the program to be a part of it.
One follow-up, Mr. Chairman. You talked about earlier documentation that a lot of inmates have trouble obtaining: Social Security cards, birth certificates. Do you find that difficult to work with, the state governments to get those documents, or how? You have any recommendations how that can go better? We can help with that.
I will refer that to Michelle Bramble here. She is actually the one that does that, and let her answer that question.
Okay. Social Security card, we work with Aaron Pointer, and he helps with that. And the license, he has someone he works with. And then the birth certificates, we take them down to the office and have them done there. And I stay with them and do that.
So you drive to Frankfurt and get that done? Is that
No, we don't have to go to Frankfurt.
okay?
Social Security, there's a Social Security office in Somerset.
Okay.
So we go there for that.
All right.
And then Aaron gets the IDs. I'm not sure how he does it, but we have paperwork we fill out, and
Okay.
he handles that. And then,
Looks like it's running pretty smooth. Is
Yeah,
that could say
yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I got. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Thank you all. I've got a couple questions. You had mentioned earlier that Department of Corrections, you had some issues with certification of the program. Can you kind of explain, is the program certified as a work release program? Like, what issues have you all had with that?
The program itself is Department of Corrections allows us to do it, but they don't give inmates time off of their sentence to complete the program, like other programs that do MRT and a few of the others. Once they complete those programs at the jail, the sentence is reduced by X amount of days. This program, they allow us to go out and to work in the job sites, and they allow us to take the inmates to the college to get these certificates, but they don't take the time off of their sentence as they do the other programs.
Have they given you any indication on why?
Pretty much scientific based. I think they want programs that have scientific based and have the data behind them in order to approve those programs. Of course, with this program, it's a new program. We started out with welding first. One is because we asked the community partners, what do you want to see first? And they come up with welding. We do plan on expanding it to other things. Like we're getting ready to start a heavy equipment. We've looked into some computer program and other ideas like that. So we are going to branch out and not just do welding. We did that kind of like Chris said, as a guinea pig to see how it goes. So we really didn't have the data to back up the program.
Is there any kind of financial incentive for you all to offer this? Because it seems like you recognize the need within the community, and you just had to do it. I mean, this can't be something that you've received extra state funding for doesn't appear like it. The fiscal court has obviously bought into the need of this. Can you all explain kind of the incentive for doing this? Is there some additional fundings from Frankfurt?
No, we get no funding as far as the facility, a jail facility. They do get funding through scholarships to do their program through the college. The college works with them to get scholarships and to get that money. Community partners such as Goodwill contributes money to buy the welding equipment. So everybody kind of chipping in, tapping into their own resources, we're able to put this together and to do it.
Representative Hale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for coming back to me again. I appreciate that. One other question that I had was, and you, I don't know if you actually addressed this or not. Are they paid the same wage
Yes.
as the other employees are?
Yes.
Okay. And so, having said that, if these inmates, is that money paid directly to them they're issued a check for that, goes into a bank account?
Yes,
or
it's a direct deposit into a bank account.
And if I can ask one other question, if these individuals, let's say they have back child support payments, how's that addressed?
That's collected out of that as well.
So those
Yes,
that would be collected out of those
Yes.
wages.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So not only, when these inmates re-enter the workforce, they've or once they re-enter society from custody, now they've got jobs. Now they've paid their debts on child support and other things. It seems like obviously the recidivism is going to be a whole lot less. And you had said you'd had 2 re-enter post-graduation out of 40 so far. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. One of the things we've seen through this committee so far is jailers across the state do great and innovative things. Matter of fact, the jailers, any of the jailers that have been within this room, I have the utmost confidence in the job they do. I've spoken with jailers across the state. I've spoken with judges across the state, and one of the things I've learned is that no 2 jails are the same and no 2 county needs are the same either. What we have to decide at some point is, are we going to continue with the warehouse model, or are we going to start implementing rehabilitation programming similar to what you've done? And the disparity from county to county has kind of been alarming to me, that you've got a program like this that can't get certified, or the department won't certify within Pulaski County, but then one county over in my home county, Rockcastle County, if I'm convicted of DUI 4th or whatever, I don't have access to this opportunity. So I'm disadvantaged because my jail doesn't offer the same programming that what you all have done. So that's a little bit concerning to me, that we don't have mandated standards across the state, and we don't offer incentives for innovation like this. It does seem like if you're from smaller rural counties where, Judge Holbrook's here, he's my judge, and he'll tell you that out of most of the occupational tax collected in Rockcastle County, it goes to fund the jail debt, because so they don't have the opportunity to incentivize like other counties may. And so that is highly concerning, that we've got some counties who only warehouse inmates, and we've got others who are able to do extremely progressive things like you're doing, and the fruits of your all's labor will be borne out, I'm sure. But it's also concerning to me that within corrections, they can't transfer these inmates around to facilities like yours that are extremely well run, or like Josh's in the back there, because he had testified earlier they're down 100 beds in their work program. And so that is a little concerning to me. But I really do appreciate you all coming up here today. I really do appreciate the job that you all have done. And I really believe that the program that you all have instituted has the potential to be implemented statewide, and I do thank you for that. So if there are no other questions, I would ask that the next presenter come to the table. Brad Sassatelli.
Thank you all.
Mr. Sastelli, if you don't care to introduce yourself for the record, and then you can begin your presentation.
Thank you very much. My name is Brad Sassatelli. I'm a Senior Vice President with CGL Companies. I'm going to pull up the slideshow real quick. Great. Well, I appreciate the invitation to be here and talk to you today a little bit about our company and what we do across the country regarding jails and prisons. If you look at CGL Companies, our main focus, our primary focus has been criminal justice consulting in state and local jails. We have a justice services division, which is I am part of. And within that, our focus has been on state prison system and county jail consulting in a variety of areas. So we're called in often to look at operations and help them address some operational problems they may have, improve their operations, improve the efficiency of their operations. Oftentimes, when we're working in counties, we have to look at the entire system. As we've heard the jailers before us speak in many meetings, jails don't control their population. So it's the system that controls it. So we go into the counties and look at the entire system, from arrest through courts, through pre-trial services to detention, to help come up with options that may, reduce the jail population or provide other outcomes that will improve the operation of the system. A large part of what we do is master planning, identifying and working with counties and states to look at what facilities they need for the future, knowing that changes have occurred quite dramatically in corrections and state and county jails in the last 10 years. Often the facilities are aged or old or just no longer designed to meet their needs. Another area we work in is staffing. In fact, that's probably one of the most primary areas we focus on. We get work in. In the last 3 years, I think I've developed 100 different staffing needs assessments for jails and prisons across the country. That's become even more important and actually expanded because of the issue with finding staff to work. So recruitment and retention is a huge part of our work based on the needs of county jails and state prison systems. Oftentimes, the organizational structure of a state system may be out of date and no longer focused on what's needed today. So part of our reviews, our organizational analysis, whatever we recommend typically has a financial impact, whether it costs more, sometimes there's savings that result from it. So any recommendation we provide has a fiscal note attached to it, identifying what its short-term and long-term costs may be. Because we're past practitioners in corrections, we often get called upon by states and counties to do after-incident reviews, where we go in and try to identify issues that may have led to a pretty serious incident. Just a year ago, I was called by Texas and led a team to Texas after an inmate escaped during transport. He was out on escape for 22 days. During that time frame, he killed a grandfather and their 4 grandsons. So I led a team in the facility to take a look at the precipitating factors that may have led to that escape and also some of the security shortfalls that had occurred. And finally, part of any master plan is identifying the current conditions of your facility, what kind of deferred maintenance you have. We know, because we have a facility maintenance division in CGL, that any deferred maintenance in a correctional system left unaddressed will double every 5 years. So I just completed a master plan in the state that had $2.5 billion in deferred maintenance and hadn't really taken care of deferred maintenance needs for years. And within 5 years, that's going to be $5 billion. And within 10 years, there'll be $10 billion if they don't address it. They were already seeing the impact And we saw the impact of that deferred maintenance with housing units that were closed because of mold, because of water leakage, because of electrical issues. So that's the level of work we do. That's the general description of the main types of projects we have. CGL's been around for a long time, nearly 50 years. We've had clients across county jail systems in small counties, large counties, state prison systems. When states prison systems need a master plan done, they call us. We've completed 34 state correctional system master plans. We have justice staff, many like me, who've worked in corrections all their life, worked in correctional systems. 3 of our members are former state correctional system directors. 2 of those past American Correctional Association presidents. And likewise, as I mentioned before, we manage our facility management division, manages and maintains over 15 million square feet of space in correctional facilities across the country. I've been around almost as long, 39 years now. I've led a number of major state and county projects, 4 state correctional system master plans, a number of county jail projects from small counties to large counties. Recently, I completed the master plan in Illinois, master plan in Pennsylvania. I'm working on at this moment, master plan in Rhode Island. We're leading our company is leading a master plan for the North Carolina Department of Corrections. We completed a major effort in Alabama a few years ago to transform their system, and also led a project in Utah. I've led a number of operational assessments and county jail assessments. So that's us. That's who we are. That's what we do. This is the type of work we regularly do. You know this, and you've heard it, but this is what we see across the country, that jail and prison systems are facing an unprecedented level of change and challenges. And those change and challenges are a result of a number of factors. Some of those factors are appropriate. The changes needed to happen. We've seen a change in the type of population jails and prisons must manage. Nearly 40% of those locked up in prison and jails now have some mental health needs as a result of a number of issues that are happening in our communities in the last 20 or 30 years. We've seen litigation changed how we have to operate. Just out of cell, solitary confinement litigation has changed how we need to operate, providing more out of cell time for the population. Many times in facilities that were never designed for that out of cell time. Medical litigation, a variety of medical litigation across the country have changed the expected standards of care within prison systems. And mental health litigation, again, has changed how we house and how we treat offenders. At the same time, society expects more of us. There's greater expectations for what's offered inside of jails, more programming, more reentry, and the same for prison systems. And then when you stack on top of that, the COVID pandemic that impacted every aspect of a jail or prison's operations and has had lasting changes on what we do, and then even add further to that the national correctional officer shortage that just about every facility across the country is facing and is truly impacting what they can do. I'll just give an example to you. Our master plan in North Carolina, if you were to look at the number of beds they had in the system today, you would say, my gosh, you have 6,000 excess beds. The problem is those 6,000 excess beds are closed because they don't have staff to manage it. So when I was in a facility last week talking to the administrators for the agency, I asked, how many excess beds do you have in this 38,000 bed system? And they had 25 to manage their population. It creates daily issues with how they operate. So what this means is that with all the change that's happened in the last 10 to 15 years, managing jails, managing prisons has become extremely more complex and required greater sophistication. When you look at the Commonwealth system, some of what you see is common across most other states in the system, but other parts are different. This is a chart of the total number of state incarcerated inmates in the system from 2012 through 2023. In 2012, the population was over 22,000 and maintained a pretty level, just slight incline during that time frame until COVID hit. And the bottom fell out and your population dropped by over 2,500 inmates and has slowly started to creep up since that time. I could take the curve of that chart and apply it to just about every state in the union in terms of prison population. They face the same thing. I've heard many people say, well, look at the number in 2023, 19,735. That's lower than it was in 2012. And true, the number is lower, but the challenges are much greater when you add to the fact that many of these facilities, many of these systems are facing a severe staffing crisis. That number, the implications of that number is amplified. What's unique about Kentucky is how many state inmates you house in state jails. In fact, when you look at the data, the most recent census from the Bureau of Justice Statistics shows that you led the country in terms of the number of inmates housed in county jails who are state inmates. At that time, it was over 10,000. The closest state was Louisiana, which had about 9,700. And after that, it fell off pretty quickly. Tennessee had around 4,000. So, as you know, that makes your system a lot more complex. You're not only dealing with the 14 state correctional facilities, you've got now another 70 county jails and 4 regional jails that all fit into this system, just increasing to the complexity that you already face. So when we approach a project, whether a project here or any other state, we kind of break it down into some of the basic aspects. Where are we at? Where's the system at today? Trying to understand that as best we can. Where do you want to go? Where do you want it to be? And then what's the process for getting there? Our approach is just a little bit more defined than that, but not much. It's because we want to make sure that we're clear and concise in how we address this. But understanding the system. What's the beds you currently have in the system? Do you have the right type of bed for the right type of population? Is your classification system good? One of the most important parts of any jail or prison system is appropriately classifying inmates. If you classify inmates wrong, you could be spending more money by sending lower level offenders to higher level facilities, or you could be creating security concerns by just doing the opposite of that. So we look at every aspect to get a good understanding of your system. The fact is, about 80% of what we do in prison systems across the country is the same, whether it's Kentucky, California, Massachusetts, Texas. The same is true for jail systems, but the other 20% is unique. And that's where we spend most of our time, is understanding what's unique about your system, about your county, about your state system. And we have to understand that before we can make any reasonable recommendations. Then we define the challenges that face you, analyze the opportunities, determine what gaps exist between where you want to be and where you are, provide options, working with our clients for solutions, and develop a report. So that's the process. And I've talked a lot about what we do. I kind of want to talk a little bit about what we've done and then open it up to questions. I want to discuss 3 different projects we've led in the last several years that have changed state correctional systems. Probably the most known across the country is the Alabama Prison Transformation Project. Alabama was struggling. National litigation in mental health and housing, standards of care had created a number of issues for them, a huge staffing problem, long before other states started to experience staffing problems. We were asked to develop a master plan for them, assess their facility conditions, determine the bed needs for the system, and again, look at life cycle cost analysis. We know when you build a new facility, about 25% of your cost is in the construction. If you look over 30 years, the remaining 75% is in the operation. So the efficient deployment of staff was important in this project. Out of it, we recommended that 10 of their 14 correctional facilities be closed and be replaced with 3 consolidated prisons, large consolidated prisons, spread kind of strategically across the state in areas where they could find employees, could have access to the services they need. The legislature and the governor approved of that, and they've begun the construction of this first facility, a 3,000-bed mental health special needs facility in Elmore County, with more construction underway. I also led a large project in Utah, a master plan, a few years back. I worked with the state legislature, their Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel, to complete a master plan for the system. We looked again at determining their future bed needs, the operational performance on the medical side and classification side. They housed about 1,700 inmates, which is about 20 to 25% of their population in state jails. We reviewed that practice toward the different jails. What we found was interesting, that when you talk to inmates and staff in the jails, the inmates may be closer to their homes, but most of them, in fact, the overwhelming majority, preferred being housed in a state jail system, in the state jail facilities. And the reason for that was very clear. Greater out-of-cell time, more activities, and greater access to programs and services. And at that time, Utah did not have a good conduct credit system, so earned conduct wasn't provided for being successful in programs and services. That was being added after the fact. But the main part of the study was to determine whether this 4,000-bed facility was their main jail, should stay where it's at or be relocated to a different location in the state so it could be developed. We provided our recommendations, and the governor and legislature acted. The new prison, 3,600 beds, opened about a year ago, and a number of other changes came about, including enhancing the jail monitoring procedures that the state correctional system has, requiring specific programs and services at the jails as a result. And lastly, I'll talk about Florida. Again, we were under contract with their legislative arm, looked at operations, looked at correctional staffing, facility conditions, their classification system, the risk needs assessment tools, and made a number of recommendations. One, that impacted the staffing issues they were facing, and two, to address deferred maintenance in the system. So those are just some examples. I could talk forever, and I don't want to talk forever. Your time is valuable. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Representative Hale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't mean to keep asking a lot of questions, but I do have one here today. You stated that Kentucky was, as far as the inmates in our county jail system, we were number one in the state.
Yes, number one in the country.
Number one in the country.
Yes.
I'm sorry, number one in the country. And then I think you said Louisiana was pretty close behind us. Okay, the states that have less of their population in the county systems, in the county jail systems, do they have more space in their state prisons?
They're able to manage their population in the systems, that they don't rely on the county jail beds as to supplement their capacity.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Williams.
I just had a couple quick questions. As I've been listening to some of the testimony in these proceedings, and the variations and the differences in everyone's jail, in your opinion, in your 39 years, is there I don't know how else to say it other than an economy of scale size that you see that you get the best bang for your buck?
In terms of the size of jail?
The size of a jail.
Well, there's no doubt truth that the smaller the jail, the more expensive the daily operating costs are when you spread it over the population. So the cost per day can be higher because of that. So yes, there is some benefit from having a larger jail, a larger size to achieve those economies of scale. But you can't get past what some smaller jails have done in terms of creating initiatives, create programs like we just heard about today at Pulaski County. Some of the best programs we have today that are evidence-based came from those initial trials that have been started in small jails.
Representative Herron.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you go back to the last slide with the
Sure.
the projects? Can you talk a little bit about what the prices were? Like, how much did it cost to do such renovations?
Pricing is the most difficult part of the discussion because it varies by location. It varies by whether the construction is inside or outside of a secure perimeter. And I'll just say that up front before I answer your question. If you're making changes or renovation inside a secure perimeter facility, it's usually about 30% higher, just simply because the contractors have to go in and out of a secure perimeter every day, check every tool. Cost per square foot varies widely. We have seen $500 a square foot to, mental health facilities that cost close to $1,400 a square foot to build. Renovation, can be 50 to 75% of that cost, depending on where it's occurring at. And anytime we do a cost assessment, it is specific to the location it's occurring at. We talk to a lot of general contractors as a result to get a specific price. But that's been the greatest variation. And as you all know, in the last, at least several years ago, huge escalation in construction costs that were just 20-25% escalation a year, when before that we experienced about 3 to 4% escalation in cost a year.
Have a follow-up. So based on we've been doing these meetings for the last few months, and I'm not sure how closer we are to understanding or coming up with solutions. If we were to say that we needed some type of official study to be done, an evaluation of what we're seeing, what would such study cost? What would the cost of such study be?
It's hard to say that without knowing all the components of what you want to achieve, because there'd be several aspects to it. So it's hard for me to give you a price right now without having a discussion of here's what we want in the study, whether it's a study of the county jail system only, if it includes the state correctional system, is it a master plan, is it an operational study, are we looking at classification? All those pieces have a cost to it, very honestly, and we'd have to understand that up front.
Can you share what the costs were of one of those studies that were done?
Yeah, Utah Master Plan was the full cost was about $1 million. It included site selection, so we were actually brought on board to help find a site for the new correctional facility, so that was part of it. The Florida DOC review was in 2018. It was about $400,000 to review that system. Again, it's a larger system in terms of a correctional system, about 100,000 beds, but didn't have the county jails as part of it.
Thank you.
One of the hot topics that we've discussed a lot is classification, and it's something that you've mentioned 3 or 4 times. In your experience, is classification an issue across all 50 states? Do some states do it better?
Several states do it very well. They've implemented classification systems that have been objectively developed, that you're not relying on judgment, that you're relying on data and facts, and then they validate those. They separate them, and I know Kentucky has separated by male and female, has an annual reclass system. My assumption is it's been validated recently, but I'm not certain of that. So in most cases, I would say probably 75% of the states have a good classification system. Doesn't mean there can't be improvements. And classification systems, if they remain stagnant, they're going to fall behind because the population changes and the bed space changes and treatment requirements change.
Okay. In those states that maybe don't do it as well, have you found any kind of common thread, like places that always need improvement or seem like this is a good starting point, or anything like that?
That's a great question. I think what we've seen more so on the county jail side, and it's probably true of smaller jails, their classification system is really a housing placement. Where do I place you in housing? Which is appropriate for small jails. You're separating by housing. You'd like it to be tied to some type of needs assessment, which may or may not exist. The biggest issue, I think, from a state system-wide is it hasn't been validated. It's not objective enough. Or it relies on factors that aren't valid. So let's talk about classification. Just initial classification, one of the biggest factors is your age. The older you are, you get older like me, you're less prone to crime or committing trouble. But there are other factors like the offense and other issues that play into it. Reclassification becomes much more important because at that point, 6 months down the road or a year down the road, you have data of how they behaved in a facility. And you could be housing them as a maximum custody inmate because of their classification level, their initial classification, which is based on age and their crime most of all. But now you have some some observation, and if they've been a good provided good behavior during that time frame, you can reclassify. That's where reclassification is probably more important than the initial classification system. So looking at reclassification is important to make sure that as time goes on, you actually are giving greater weight to the behavior while they're inside the facilities.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing no other questions, and having nothing else on the agenda, I want to say thank you to everyone who presented. And our next meeting is November the 8th at 10 a.m. and we are adjourned.